Hello everybody, welcome to my video. Today I'm going to talk you through 3 of Google's online challenges to capture the flag. Just a little bit of context around this. Every year Google hosts a set of challenges where teams come together to identify cross-site scripting exploits in order to capture the flag. And there's quite a bit of money to be won if you're one of the first teams to do this. This is the training program for that. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to basic cross-site scripting exploits in order for you guys to understand this a little bit better. Okay, with that said, let's start. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go through the basic approach that I take when trying to identify cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. The first one is to look at the inputs. As you can see here, we have a URL and we have here a query that can be entered at the bottom. So let's just try something very simple, straightforward, like the word test. And let's see what happens. Okay, so what it's doing here is just putting the input that you typed in back inside the DOM. So let's see what it's doing under the hood. Let's try test again. And as we can see, it's doing a AJAX request to this domain, get it to 100, and then sending back some type of document that is simply DOM that then adds in the text that the user put in for the input. Okay, so let's try and debug this a little bit more. Okay, well, what's this? So this looks like the source for something. Let's have a look. Okay, well, this is something you probably won't get if you're doing this for real, but this is the back-end source code for this particular example. As you can see, it's written in Python, and this is just the get handler for the request. It's doing something interesting here. It's adding a header to the response. This essentially just switches off the protection for cross-site scripting, and what that does is simply says to the browser, you're allowed to run script tags that are embedded on the response. It's quite an old header now. I think it's been deprecated. It's not really used anymore. But as you can see down here, it's just taking the query and bunging it in between these two B tags. Okay, so from looking at that source code, it doesn't look like it's tried to escape anything or remove any tags. So if I put in an H1 here, just do test, it's just put that tag straight in there. So this is a vulnerability. This means it is now vulnerable to adding in script tags. So let's try something. Well, I've already written this in before, but essentially it is a script tag with an alert in it. As you can see, that worked. And if we look inside the DOM, we can see that it's just put in between those two B tags a script, and then it's evaluated that alert there. So that's pretty straightforward. Probably a couple of you guys out there would have thought of that quite quickly. It's quite simple. It's essentially what you have if you have no protection against cross-site scripting. So let's go to the second challenge. This one's probably going to be a bit more complicated. So here we have some sort of, I guess, forum or board where you can type something. So let's just type something in there. Okay. The first thing I would do is just try the attack we used before. Why not? It's probably not going to work, but let's see what happens. Let's try a script tag and then put an alert. Okay, so it hasn't escaped that and then put it down as text. It looks like, okay, so it's actually put the script tag in there. So interestingly enough, it's not evaluated that. So let's see why that's the case. Let's have a look at the code for this. Let's open in this in a new tab. Right, so this is the front end code. It's basically taking the posts from somewhere, creating a block of DOM, and then adding that DOM to an inner HTML container tag. So this what this means is that, let's check the store. Yeah, it's just grabbing this from local storage, and that's from the front end, and then just trying to bug it in there. What this means is that it's not actually going to run this script tag, because if I just edit this HTML and I add in a script tag like this, it's not actually going to run that code. And the reason, because on the previous example, we had a AJAX request that gave a 200 response, which was a document that then reloaded the page and then injected that script tag. So that it meant because the page reloaded, it would evaluate from the top to bottom and run that script tag. In this case, we're just adding this via JavaScript on the front end, which means it won't run this script tag. So there's another way we can try to exploit this page, and that is to use an image tag. So if we do an img, set it to a source that's going to fail, so not a valid URL, which would be like X, and then we have an on error handler that does the alerts. So what should happen here is that this request will fail to get the image, and on error it should try and evaluate this. Brilliant. Okay, so we can now see that it's added that image tag and it's run that bit of code. So that's a really good exploit, by the way. If you have the ability to put in some DOM inside the page somewhere and it's not being escaped, then try an image tag or indeed a script tag. So let's go to the next one. So this one's a bit more tricky. We don't have any sort of input here apart from these tabs, which we can just click, and then we have a number here that's synced up here. So frame 2, image 2, to look at these images. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna jump straight to the source code and see if there's any obvious exploit. I would imagine for this, it's something to do with URL, because that's the only input we have to change on this page. So let's open up this tab here. So, okay, so we have these tabs here, and when they click, they pass a number, and that number goes into here. It passes this number and adds it into this HTML here, but then it also adds in this image tag, and it doesn't pass this number here in there. It's unescaped, and it just bungs it straight in this source tag. Okay, so if we click a button and it passes that in, we can't really change that value. But there is some interesting code here where window on load, it then chooses the tab. Now, I guess it does this because if you say hard refresh the page, it needs to know which tab to select. So I think what it does is takes the number from the URL using the substring, unescapes it, and then goes through this choose tab method and then injects it here into this image tag. So what I think that means is that if we put a single quote here for the number, we would then stop this string here, and anything else after that will simply just be an attribute for this image tag, and then we can do the same type of exploit that we did previously. So let me show you how that works. If I here do a single quote, and then I do like test, for instance, let's see what happens. Okay, so here you see it's escaped that there, and this here is written as if it's an attribute for the source tag. So if I then change this to on error, then yeah, that should show the alert. We can see here it's added in here, and then it's just ignoring that JPEG bit at the end, and static level 3 cloud doesn't evaluate to a real URL, so it just hits this error. So this example here is a bit tricky. I'll probably do this on another video, but that's everything today, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, and give any feedback. All right, cheers, guys.